Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SharePoint Concierge webinar. We're going to get started in about 60 seconds. All right, welcome everyone to the SharePoint Concierge webinar for this month. We've got some cool topics for you, and I probably said this over the previous webinars. Not only does this activity keep dataBridge, I'll say, on the bleeding edge of what Microsoft is rolling out in new features, but we believe this is so powerful for you, our clients, in that you're paying for the subscription to 365, and whether it be Teams or the new AI stuff in Copilot, the SharePoint features, Microsoft keeps releasing these new features that are made available to you within, most of them within that license that you already own. So just making the most you can out of what SharePoint and Microsoft 365 brings to the table. So we're excited to share some new stuff with you today. Hayden Honerkamp is going to be our moderator, and we will jump right into it. Hayden, I'll turn it over to you and let us know what we've got planned for today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. Hello and welcome, everyone. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Thursday. It's one day away from that beautiful, beautiful weekend, and glad to be talking with you today. I'm pleased to serve you as your moderator. If you are a returning guest, it is so good to see you guys again. If this is your first time, welcome. We're glad to have you. As Michael kind of alluded to, we host these monthly webinars as a way to help educate everyone on the new and upcoming changes that is happening in the ever so changing O365 environment. And we cover a broad amount of different topics so that everyone can hopefully walk away with a little bit more inspiration and ready to really control their content destiny. So a few things to mention right before we jump in. You may have noticed when you join that your mics are muted. So if you do have questions or comments, we do encourage you to utilize the chat feature during the presentation. Our team will be able to communicate with you there. And then once the webinar concludes, we will be moving into a live Q&A section, which we will then allow users to unmute, ask questions to our team in real time, but more on that afterwards. As you see on your screen today, we do have a jam-packed schedule. We're starting off with Dylan, who will be teaching us on two separate topics. The first one being the new list form design feature that's being rolled out on lists. I'm very excited about that one. The second one being a new intelligent document processing way to do things. After that, we'll move to Ken, who will be showing us a new way to manage document libraries with modern document sets. Really pay attention to this one, guys. This one's a huge game changer. And then to wrap up the presentation, we'll have Leona Lamont bring us up to speed with Compliance Center audit reporting. And last but certainly not least, the new backgrounds for SharePoint sections. And with all that said, let's go ahead and jump on in with Dylan's first topic. Over to you, Dylan.
Hey everyone, yeah, so I'll go ahead and pull up my slide here. And yeah, so in today's presentation, as Hayden was mentioning there, the first topic will be about some of the much requested features that are coming, or you may already have started to see in your Microsoft list. Now, the main anticipated feature here being the this new sort of form designer that's easy to use, where you can have like a custom form. So we want to get into that today. Focus on that primarily, but there is a handful of other sort of aesthetic changes that you'll start to notice that people have been requesting, which are pretty nice as well. But yeah, that main one being getting some of that, more of that Microsoft Forms style functionality within your Microsoft list without having to have this sort of separate apps that you have to work with. And so I'll get into that. I'll show you some of those features. We'll just walk through an example. And then I'll just define these terms just to make sure we're on the same page. The Microsoft list, that's really being the sort of the forms that are primarily, submitted to SharePoint. So you have your tables, your list of data, and you might just have your vanilla forms, or maybe there's some custom code to make them look a certain way, or you have a form tool. But all that data is just in SharePoint. Whereas the Microsoft Forms, which is sort of their easy to use form tool, that doesn't by default submit to SharePoint, and it's usually focused more as like for your surveys and quizzes, feedback forms, like these quick ways of spinning up, like getting feedback or whatever it is. So what they've sort of done is merge some of that functionality over to the list. So if you're familiar with Microsoft Forms, it's going to be pretty similar in the Microsoft list in terms of what you can do. So with that in mind, I'll go ahead and pull an example onto the screen, and we'll just walk through what you'll expect when you see this raw in your tenant. So on the screen here, and I'll open it up a little bit. Basically right now I'm in actually the Microsoft list view. This isn't SharePoint, but it's just in the Microsoft list view of it. Basically the main thing that we want to discuss being this new forms feature that you'll see. So up here in the command bar, there's this option to create forms. So by default, you normally would hit the add new button. You've got your sort of vanilla form by default. If you wanted to make changes to it, you might add different formulas or your configure layout for like a JSON schema, which, usually is more on the development side. So this is, what you're used to. Now, in terms of one of the new changes coming is this new sort of pop out. So instead of it just showing on the left-hand side, people have wanted this. It used to be something that was around where you could have the form just sort of pop out in the center of the screen, as opposed to just being more like the side character in the panel on the left or on the right. So that is a new thing you'll see as well. This option to have it as like a pop-up in the middle of the screen. But what I'll go into is actually show you what you can do and have multiple custom forms on your list. So maybe you as an admin, you want to see all the fields, you want to see everything, you want to see the list, but you don't need users to come to this list or to see anything here. You want to treat this as sort of the back end. So what you can do with this new feature is you can click the forms button. I've got an example form set up, but you could see I could actually have multiple forms on this list. So I could actually walk through creating a new one. And just to show I already have one here that I've started to work on. But you'll see it actually, this is, let me open it up a little bit. So this is kind of the interface that you'll work with. It's fairly straightforward in what you can do, as in it's not going to be ultra custom like, maybe a Power Apps or something like that. It's going to be hiding and showing fields. You could add new fields, very similar to, Microsoft Forms and the way it works and the fields that are available. You won't have maybe things like lookups right now, but you'll have, choices, numbers. You'll see all of them here, multi-line, person fields, yes, no. So these are the fields that are going to be supported for the time being. So it's most of them, but just to be aware of that. So this would be great. Let's say if you do have currently maybe an FAQ list or something like that. I know a lot of people do. If you want to only have certain fields for people to fill out, maybe like you want to have them submit questions and then send an alert to you, that kind of thing. You can have a nice branded form where maybe we say, now this isn't an FAQ list, but this is a service request. But just to show you, if I only want to show certain fields on this form that users will open, I could just hide or show those fields. Now, I don't have any sort of complex conditions at the moment to hide or show the fields, but this is sort of just a focused, getting started, new feature that's coming out. I'm sure they'll add more stuff in the future, but there's some use cases where this will be really handy just right off the bat. So we could hide or show our fields. We could add new ones on the fly if we wanted to, just to show you a couple of things. You have an option right now to set a few different background themes, because this will be essentially like its own page. User will click it, and I'll show you here in a sec. And so you can set up a style for this, sort of choose your theming. Just some basic theming options now. And then you can have once they submit, there's going to be a submit button. You can choose a message, thank you for your submission, or, you submitted this successfully, we'll get back to you, whatever you want there. You can have sort of an accepted response after they submit. Now, once you get it sort of set up how you want, maybe you want to change, you want to have a different title here. You can have a description, you can add what you want for the title and description on here. It doesn't require any code for that. And, when you're ready, you can just hit the send form and do the copy link. It is also auto saving. So what I'll show you real quick, if I just exit out, go back to my forms, I can have different forms here. And the point is that at any point, so I just real quick, just created a new one, didn't set anything up on it, but I could copy a link to this. And then at any point, we could either send this out to people, put a link on our homepage, wherever on your homepage, or in a quick link web part or something like that, whatever you'd want in your navigation. And that could just be a direct link to the form. So I've got my example form open just to give you an idea here. So here's my form with the branding and everything. So the user would click that link, and whatever I set up for the branding and the fields that will show, this is what they're going to see. It even has a little hi, current user's name, and I have the title, the header up there with the different fields, and so I could just go ahead and fill it out. And just getting, I just have the basic, thank you, your response has been submitted, but I could change that out for whatever I'd want there. And you do have the option to, send an alert and that kind of thing as well. If you have a mailbox, as the owner of the form, if you want it to email to you, you have a mailbox in your account, it can also send you an alert. But all that data will get submitted to your list, which is nice. Whereas before, maybe if you wanted to have a Microsoft Forms that had a nice kind of design to it, you would need something like automation to have it submit to the list. If you want to store it in SharePoint as opposed to, where Microsoft Forms is storing its data. So kind of nice that they're integrating that, and it's fairly straightforward to use. But, at this time, just to, keeping in mind, it is sort of what they're called like a WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. So there's no sort of back-end deep customization for it. But for its use case, it could be really nice because of how easy it is to use. But yeah, you will start to see some other aesthetic changes in the list as well that they're rolling out. So it's kind of just in process. I think by May it'll be complete. They started the rollout, I believe it was mid to end March, and then I think they complete all the regions by May. It was May sometime. So if I'm not mistaken. So by then you'll start to see all of those. You'll see that forms button. You'll start to see some of the different aesthetic changes with the different tabs for the views here, like this has. So it'll start to look, I would say it looks nicer in my opinion, and I like some of the aesthetic stuff they're rolling out as well. But yeah, that main one being the forms, which is actually new functionality. Yeah, with that in mind, I think that'll cover this first topic. So you can look forward to that. Just keep a lookout for that forms button, if you want to use that. We can always help you if you have any questions, to help check to see if you have that feature available yet. But yeah, super handy. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and switch over to my next slide here. Yeah, so this one is about sort of, what they're calling this, the new sort of branding for all of the making sense of your data using AI. It's, they're calling it like their content AI, sort of the overall, but there's a lot of different aspects of what that could mean, and how you can make sense of your data, using whatever it may be, whether it's in this case, it's going to be the Microsoft syntax. But there's a lot of different ways, all these different AI tools or machine learning tools, algorithms, whatever they are, the way they can work together. But in today's presentation, what I want to focus in on is this Microsoft syntax capability, which is to extract data from your documents. So some people may already be familiar with the SharePoint syntax. They've sort of expanded that to just be Microsoft syntax. So it doesn't necessarily just have to process documents that are stored in a document library. But anyways, that's what we'll focus on today. But this is a pretty broad tool, actually, in terms of what it could do. But we're going to focus on that SharePoint aspect of it. And, really something that's handy, that's a tangible thing that I can show you guys today, is how it can take, if you have sort of template documents, policies, whatever they may be, some kind of invoices, you can automatically extract values out of there and have that stored in metadata without having to manually do that, or have some kind of process that's happening after the submission. It can be automated, pull out certain values from those documents, and that could be used for a variety of things. And so I'll go into that a little deeper and show you how that works. But just to define a couple terms here and what we're talking about. So we're just talking about pulling out metadata. In general, we're just saying, the metadata is what I'm referring to there. It's just, it's data about that's providing information about your data. So in this case, we're just talking about pulling out information from your document and tagging that tagging it so that it could be searchable, it could be used for reports, it could be used for graphs, Power BI, whatever it is. And in SharePoint, generally what we want to do is store that metadata in site columns. So those are those columns that are in your library, which I'll show you. I have an example set up of this, and we'll show how you can sort of automate that. Now, a few other terms, I won't go too in depth with these, but we're going to go over basically some of the pre-built models that Microsoft provides with Syntax, as in you don't have to train anything. You could use one of their pre-built ones. It's also cheaper. You don't have to provide a bunch of documents to train a model. But if you did want to train the models, you can use what's called the AI Builder. And depending on, a lot of which it's a credit-based method, so you can use AI Builder add-on in your environment to do all kinds of training to, just make your tenants smarter with some of the AI capabilities, train your own models and do a lot of things, extract data in a lot of different ways, whether they're structured documents or unstructured. But today we'll go over just like more of a structured method where it's a document that's templated and it's using a pre-built model that's provided by SharePoint, or provided by Microsoft. So it's very easy to sort of get this up and running and see how it works. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pull onto the screen my tab and we'll go over this. Now I've got actually one of the Syntax sites pulled up here, but what I'm going to do is actually go over the extraction process. So let me just click over to my library. So basically what I did here to get this set up, this Microsoft Syntax, I already have it available in my environment. I believe you can also get this available. I think they're doing a trial period as well, so you can get it turned on, I believe, and there may even be some level of like a free trial. But what the new method is more pay-as-you-go, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But when Syntax is enabled, you have this option on a library to use what's this classify and extract. So this is the option that I have available now because I have Syntax that's turned on in this environment, which allows us to say, let's manage, if there's already an existing model applied to this library, or you could set up a new one. So just to show you real quick, if I hit available, I could create a new model, and just to show you that there is these sort of pre-built models. So like invoice processing, receipt, contract, and then the custom models. This is what's going to use that AI Builder, where maybe you have some kind of form. It's some kind of form. It may be different each time, or whatever it may be. You can use one of these and provide a bunch of examples for it and train it yourself. They also have these pre-built models that you can just try out to kind of get the ball rolling, and it provides the sort of the pre-built training data and documents and things like that. And I would say that's kind of a good starting point just to try this out, is to use one of these pre-built models before you sort of dive into maybe a custom model. Now I've already selected one of these and set it up, but I'd basically be able to select one of these. You'll get an idea here. It's just showing you what it's extracting. So you'll see this is like an example invoice with the different values that it's going to be processing, which we can then use to say, hey, let's actually have site columns where we store this data. So then we can, whether it be a report, a Power BI, a spreadsheet, whatever it is, we can do totals. We don't have to manually enter these values into our site columns. We can just have it rip all this stuff out and then, just sort of have it automatically creating graphs for us, whatever it is that you're looking for from these documents, without having to manually do that process of maybe, submitting a separate form or filling out that data on this document. But I won't follow through this completely because I've already got it set up, but this is what you would do if you want to try out a pre-built. Click that classify and extract, maybe try a pre-built model, just to do this on a demo library if you wanted. But I'm going to cancel out, and just to show you, I already have one applied here. So this sample one here, I've already got it applied. And what it's doing right now, it's just a simple example. I've got these documents, and anytime I drop one in here, and I'll show you real quick what'll happen as well. So I'll just drop a new document in, and it's actually extracting out the title of the form into this new field I just called title extract. So it'll automatically, rip out sort of that header from the document and tag it into the title field. And, I could set up all kinds of other fields as well. Maybe if there's, you have someone specific that's on the form, or there's values in the form. And just to show you the form that I'm dropping into there, just to give you an idea, this is one of their sort of templates, which, it's a stylized form. We're ripping out this header here. There's other values that we could pull out, like if if it's client-based documents or something, you want to rip out the client, or there's prices or percentages in your document. This one's just a Word document. You can do it with other type of documents. Or if there's down here, we could say where anytime after the sincerely, whoever that user is, rip it out. So anyways, you could do a lot of that sort of it's trained to understand where to pull those values out. And just to give you an idea as well, if I click over to, I believe I've got my model set up there. And actually, yeah, just to explain as well, when you do that classify and extract, it'll set up on your site a place to store your model. This is the models library. So if I click on it, I'll just walk through it, from clicking on the model. This is where I could actually change that model. Specifically what I did is you can see the different example for the training. What I set up is the extractor, where I chose, a new site column, or you could choose an existing column if you already have it set up. So I could say I already have site columns. I want to use one of my existing ones, or I can create a new one. So I could start to say, yeah, let's pull out some other values, whatever we'd want to pull out from that document, and we could walk through that. And have another one. I already have that title extract set up, but this is where I could come to my model and say, let's make some changes, pull out some more values, that kind of thing. And then when you're ready, I could say apply model. So I've only got one set up right now, but you can see I could set up other ones. Basically the idea, that's the classify part. Depending on the type of document being dropped in, it'll say, okay, we should use this model because it's, this type of document versus the other one. So, this one is an HR benefits one. So if you had another one that's whatever, an invoice PDFs, that you could have a model for the invoice PDFs or something like that. So that would be the idea there, and it would be able to classify which type it is. So you could have multiple models on the same library if you wanted, or have them broken out. So it's pretty interesting. And if I come back here, you'll see it did tag my new document. So the new one I just set up about a minute ago, you'll see it did tag that particular value automatically. So I didn't have to do anything there other than just drop it in there. So that means it's going to be more searchable. We could do a bunch of other things with it. In terms of those other things, if you are wanting to try it out, they do provide some also site templates like content centers that you can check out. So like when you go to create a new site, you can see some of these are actually called Microsoft Syntax. I haven't played around with them too much yet, but I did just create a site. But the idea is, there's all kinds of things you could do to help, maybe visualize your data, whatever it is. You're pulling data out. Maybe you want to throw that data from the documents into a list. So like in this example here, it's showing all these different values that are getting pulled out, creating graphs out of them, things like that. So you could automate some of this if it's in documents. Either rip it out into metadata or into another list. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you could do there with the extracting of the data. Just keep in mind, it's one aspect of what this could do, but I think it's in general a pretty useful, kind of easy to understand idea that could be useful and fairly straightforward to set up if you want to just try it out first. We can always help out with some of the questions there. There is, depending on your licenses, if you want to train your own models, I think it uses some of your AI builder credits. So if you have like a Power Automate Premium, or there's a few other licenses as well, you already have some credits available to you to train your own models. They sort of just include that with a bunch of different licenses. There is also these different add-ons. You can also request the free trial. They give you like 1 million credits or something like that. So there's a bunch of ways where you can they're trying to just, let people try it without having to necessarily purchase a bunch of things. So you can try that out. And sort of the new aspect of this, Syntax has been around, but the new thing is sort of this pay as you go. There's a table that breaks it down, but basically what it'll come down to is I think the tagging process is something like anytime that tag process runs, it's something like 5 cents or something like that. Or uh, the way it breaks down, I think to process each page, it's like a penny. That's sort of how it works. It's just pay as you go. It's like a couple cents for each time this process is running, and depending on what it's doing, it's either 5 cents or 1 cent, or if it's an unstructured document, it's 10 cents. So there is like a big spreadsheet of all the different syntax things where you can do the pay as you go. I think previously this was just a license, like the SharePoint syntax, but this is sort of that new model, just sort of, you just pay for what you use. I think for today, that's really all I'll cover with this. There's a lot of other stuff you could do with it, but I think this extracting feature is really the main one I'll cover. And so with that in mind, I think I'll hand this back over. And yeah, that'll conclude my part of the presentation.
Awesome, Dylan. Thank you so much. I'm personally so excited about the new form feature that they're rolling out to the SharePoint lists. Having just multiple forms on a list, on a single list, is huge. I mean, think about like office management alone. Having requests for meals, hotel reservations, travel accommodations, all of that data being stored in one localized place is a huge thing. And also the auto syntax is going to be a huge game changer as well. The ability to extract and manage, utilize your data in an easy, better way has always been the way to the future. And the invoice case study that he was showing is a perfect example of that, being able to pull multiple data levels up to the surface without manual entry. And let's be honest, guys, no one really likes manual content entry anyway. So let's let the machines handle the heavy lifting. So this is going to be great. Thank you so much, Dylan. Up next, we will hear from Ken, who's presenting on the modern document sets. Over to you, Ken.
Great, thanks a lot. So I want to start this discussion today by piggybacking on the setting metadata discussion that we just left. But document sets will allow you to do in a structured way, whereas the other tool allows you to do it in a more free-form or unstructured way, is to automatically tag information onto your documents as you work with a folder-like construct. So document sets have been around for a very long time, and they have been going through the refresh to make them fully modern, and they're almost 100% modern now. There's a couple of features that we'll take a look at that are still lagging and still have a classic appearance, one of which can be made modern if you're willing to run a script on your tools. The other, unfortunately, is still lagging. It's a feature I think may come in the future. Be interested to see what that will look like. Document sets are available on any of your sites, but are turned off by default. It is a site collection feature. So if you're a site collection administrator, you can go into the site collection features and you can enable them. There are no additional features that need to be enabled. Some of the features are complex. They have other sections that have to be activated. This is not one of those. This can be activated or deactivated in a singular mode. So you can go in, turn on your document sets, and then you'll gain access to all the features we're going to talk about today. All right, let me share my desktop out and we'll talk through a demo really quickly here. So I have your classic library here, and as you can see, I have a mix of what look like folder-like constructs. I have a classic folder here, and then I have these additional folders. These have a slightly different icon. This is a normal vanilla folder. I just color-coded it purple, and these are document sets. Document sets have color coding as a feature you can set because under the hood, they are thought of as a class of folder, but as you can see, the icon does not change color. So while you can set the color, perhaps do that with the anticipation that in the future, the icon will get color coded. Currently, the icons do not change color. So why use document sets? Well, document sets have been talked about ever since their introduction as folders on steroids or super folders, and that's really how I think of them. They work and act and look like folders, but they come with so many additional features that using them, particularly at the root of your site, which is what this is, here's the root of the library, really makes sense. And you'll see why here in just a second. So if I add a classic folder here, let's say I'm going to do a brand new project. So I add a folder and I say I'm going to do project Vulkan, and we'll make project Vulkan green and we'll create the folder. So I'll get my Project Vulkan folder, and I can now drop documents into that folder, just like you're probably all used to doing. So why not go with that approach? Well, right now, if I do that with this folder, nothing is going to happen in terms of tagging my information. You'll also notice if I look at this folder, and when I look at the properties for the folder, right, I'm going to get the name of the folder. I don't get a lot of information about that folder. And so you can provision folder variants as content types. That is something that can be done. But if you do that, you're going to run into some limitations on how the actual folder versus the document set works structurally. So adding metadata to the folder level, not necessarily a good idea. And that's why the document set exists, because this document set concept has the idea of having metadata associated with it. And then what's more, cascading that metadata on an inheritance basis to any children that are placed inside of that folder. So if I look at that same feature here, because you can tag metadata on the old folders, but what you have to do is you have to go into the library settings, and then in the library settings, there is a feature that allows you to, in a non-dynamic mode, set metadata values. And so I can do column default value settings. Now I have my Project Vulkan folder, and I can come in and I can say, okay, anything put in Project Vulkan would have given metadata values, and I could set that. But that all has to be done through this administrative process. It is fixed in place and very heavy in terms of setting these default values. And in order to get away from that and make things a lot more dynamic and a lot more in the hands of the users, Microsoft provisioned the concept of the document set. So if I go through the same process and I do a Project Vulkan, but I do a document set, I can pick, I've got a couple different document sets here. I've got one that will provision just the folder construct, and then I have one that will actually provision the folder construct with data already in it. It will have documents placed within it in a template form that I would expect my team to fill out based on the fact that this is a certain class of work that I'm asking to get done. So we'll start with the plain one, and then we'll come back and show you the more advanced populated one. Refresh my screen here to get the UI. There we go. So you'll notice we're dropping into classic. We're not in modern. This is one of the areas that hasn't fully been modernized yet. And as we'll see, you can run a script, and I'll demonstrate that here. And if you run a script on your tenant, then when you do, you get the modern interface. And this modern interface is dynamic, which means if you adjust the metadata that's associated with that given content type, you'll actually see those columns show up here. So you only need to run the script once, and then you'll get a dynamic interaction with your model. This to me means you'll probably see the modern interface on document sets shortly, but we all know in Microsoft terms shortly can be quite a while. So if you want it now, it is available. We do have a link to that script, and we can help you with that if that's something you want to explore. So that is one of the areas that we have right now that is still classic, and you'll have to go, through, letting people know, yeah, your UI is going to change a little bit when they create the object, but again, you can do a modern version. So I'll go ahead and give my name here. So we'll do Project Vulkan, but we'll do a doc set. And then I can give it a full description if I want. And then I have one piece of metadata that I've tagged this with, which is my demo departments. And so I can go pick my departments. And I'll say this is for human resources. And now I can go ahead and provision the object. All right, so I have my object out here. So let's begin to take a look at some of the differences between a plain folder and a document set. If I'm here at my root, let me switch my view over, right? And I've got a view that shows just folders. If I can get it to work, let me refresh my view again. There we go. If I have this view here and I go into Project Vulkan and I want to work with it, you'll notice that my view actually doesn't change. So I'm in my folder, Project Vulkan, but my view has stayed in that folder's view, which means if I have additional metadata, that I want displayed only when the documents themselves are displayed. The users have to get trained that they go into the folder and then they adjust the view, or your base view has to have all those columns already visible in it, which can mean at the folder level, at the root of your library, it can be very messy visually, very difficult for people to work with. When you have a document set on a per content type basis, so if you have 3, 4 different document sets, each which is content typed, you can actually then go in and say, when I go into Project Vulkan, I actually want to shift to a different view. And you can see here, I'm in the DMS folder content view. And that's because the system has that capability that per document set content type deployed in a library, you can select what child view you see when you actually access that folder. So you go back up to the root, go ahead and switch it. It actually does switch to the other view. There's something wrong with my browser session. It does switch automatically back to your default view when your browser isn't damaged like mine currently is. So that means that you can go into and out of folders and go to your base view and then into your child views without the user having to be trained to switch views, which means that you can have a richer metadata discussion at different levels of your hierarchy, which is usually what people want. They usually want a very clean level for their folder level, and then when they go in and look inside the content, they want all of the details. And that's because you can obviously associate specific metadata columns with specific document set types, because you're going to have a very a certain kind of conversation. So a project-based conversation or a department-based conversation, and the metadata columns would change based on the type of conversation that you're having. So that's one of the major differences. You also have the difference that if I have this folder here and I drop something in it, if I haven't gone through the exercise through the administrative section that we displayed and set default values, nothing's going to happen to information that I drop in this folder. It's just going to basically be in the folder. But I can access this folder here and I can put information into this folder. So we'll grab a couple of demo documents off my desktop and we'll drop those in. Give it a second for them to upload. And you'll notice that I tagged my folder as being related to the department Human Resources, and these two documents were automatically tagged as Human Resources. And you can do that with any number of the metadata columns that you have, which means if you have something where you're on a given site in a given library with a given folder construct, and you know that that site is dedicated to a given department, that library is for a specific working group, and then that folder is for a specific project, you could stamp your document with all 3 of those metadata values automatically without a human having to type anything. And that has an immense amount of power, right? As long as you have your teams trained on just that level of hierarchy, right? That they go to this site for this library, and then they add a document set for a particular activity, and they set the metadata values, and they're good to go. Because the columns for something on the order of the department and then the team could have been set by default in the content type, because you could set that document set content type as defaulting to Human Resources, and then say it's the hiring team, and then you have a specific project, and that project could be the candidate that you're hiring. And so that third column would be dynamic, and you would be able to just pick that, and that means that everything gets stamped, which means if you ever want to work with your content without the folder getting in the way, you have the metadata values for what department is this associated with, what work team is it associated with, and in this case, what hiring candidate it would be associated with. So that's what the user experience looks like when you're working with them. Now we're going to take a look at when I'm building these out as content types, what does that experience look like? And so this is one of my types that I have here, and you'll see that I'm looking at the populated version. So we're going to look at the settings for creating something that already has structure, so that you would expect a team member to come along and fill out specific templates. This is that approach. This is the templating approach. We'll take a look at what it has for features, and then we'll go look at a demonstration of that, and then we'll wrap up. So when you provision this content type, it's like provisioning any other content type with the exception of this document set settings. So this document set settings is where most of the magic, not all of it, but most of the magic happens. So if I go into the settings, now I can declare that for this folder type, I only want certain content to be allowed in that folder type. And that's what this first section here, you can see it says allowed content types. So I can say you can only put DMS-based content, contracts, and procedures inside of this kind of folder. I don't want you putting anything else in the folder. It has to be tagged as one of those. These then also become the values that are available to you on the dropdown, the new dropdown, when you are in the folder. So in addition to the view changing, the new dropdown changes so that at the root, the new dropdown can show just the folder values, so just the document sets that you want someone to be able to add. And then when you are in one of those document sets, they have specific templates that they're allowed to add. You then have other information that you can tag. The information that allows you to cascade things through is default content and shared columns. These two are incredibly powerful. So for default content, we can set that I actually want templates placed in that library, either in a subfolder or not. You can choose to put a subfolder. I chose to have a contract subfolder and a procedures subfolder. And then I chose the templates. These are the two templates that I'm using. And these will get automatically created whenever I use this specific content type. In addition, I'm saying pass through the DMS demo department value to any of those documents, because these two, procedure and contract, have that metadata value in them. And so they will inherit whatever I set at the folder level. There are other pieces of information that are in here, but they are not really online yet. You can fill them out. The welcome page is one where you can set what values I want to see on the welcome page, but there is no welcome page in modern. There is a classic welcome page, but shifting between the modern document set interaction and classic, in my opinion, going to just have the welcome page value really isn't worth it. I do think they will probably modernize that and make it optional in the future, where you'll have the ability to have that welcome page. It gives you the ability to display additional metadata information, things like the description of the folder, so that it's treated essentially as a project working space. So, a mini space within your document library space. So a view on steroids is how I have always viewed that. But right now, you can only access that via Classic. So the cost to me to do that isn't really worth it. All right, so let's take a look at, if we have the populated version, what does that look like? So we'll go back up a level here and we'll go ahead and add a populated version of this, and we'll take a look at what that buys us. There we go. And so we'll say Project Vulkan docset, and then we'll do populated. And we'll choose information technology as our department. And then we'll provision our document set. So now you'll notice I actually have subfolders that were added automatically to my document set. And inside of those would be the templates that I provided. They're already ready to go, and this is all template driven. So if you update the template, the next time someone provisions this object type, they get the latest version of the template. And so what that can do is give you a information management structure already ready to go for a particular class of work. This works very well for things like projects, because in a project you would expect to have a scope statement and a work breakdown structure, and you'd have things like your charter, and you can provision all of that out here in template form, because somebody spins up a new project and then they can come out and they can fill out all those documents. And because you're tagging them automatically with your information like department or project name, project manager, and so on, all that information is passing through from the folder level. All right, so that's it on document sets. I'll hand things back to Hayden now.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ken. I'm every time I see him talk about modern document sets, it blows my mind. I mean, just think of having your documents templatized with document sets, with the auto metadata tagging in a structure that was set out for the user, on top of even combining the last topic we talked about with the AI syntax where it surfaces that data, I mean, sure, it takes a little time to get set up, but once it's set up, it's going to be so easy and usable for the end users, and it's going to be good, clean data. I mean, this is just gone are the days of the older file cabinet-esque document management approach, and we're excited to show you those different options, and we look forward to hopefully stoking up some creativity. New hire packets, I mean, that alone, just having that templatized, as Ken was saying, where you can have all relative files for that related person, making sure that they are checked off and that you have it all in one clean place is just going to be huge. So with that said, we're going to close out today's webinar with Leona. She's going to be talking about 2 different topics today, and I'm just going to go ahead and pass it over to her. Over to you, Leona.
All righty, welcome everyone. Yep, today I'm going to be talking about 2 things. The first one is about the audit, compliance center audits. We will kind of run through how to create, run, and then see the reports of the audits. These controls in essence can be used for a number of different things. Realistically, Microsoft is kind of tracking you at all times inside the Office 365 on kind of all the actions that you as a user or you as a system account potentially are performing at any given time. So some examples might be, let's say you want to track, page engagements. You can be able to track that information to say on this day, how many users viewed this page, or I want to know how many users are watching our videos or commenting on our videos, or I want to know that there was a compromised account and we want to know what damage it done while it was compromised. So in essence, Microsoft is tracking all that information at a given time, and it's really just more of learning where to go to get this information from. So to begin off, we're going to be talking about the compliance portal. This is going to be like any other Office 365 admin portal area inside the tenant, in which you're going to need to have a specific role applied to you to be able to get access to here. So just be aware that, hey, you need to be a compliance portal admin to be able to kind of engage with this aspect. So today we're going to go ahead and start off with navigating to our admin center. And then here in the left navigation, if you don't see it by chance, you can always expand it or hit the show at all admin centers. And we're looking for the compliance portal. So once we do that, we get taken to the compliance portal here. And then also in the left navigation, let me zoom this in a little bit more for us. We have audits underneath solutions. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And then we get taken to a page that has a number of different fields available to us. So again, we have the date range in which we wish to kind of perform this audit. Microsoft also, just be aware, only allows 6 months of range whenever you do perform one of these audits. So if by chance you say, I want to know the entirety of somebody's reports for the last year, you would have to do 6-month batches of it if you so desire. Next, we also have keyword searches. So if you're looking for very specific keywords, you can type that into here if you so desire. We also have our activities. These are probably going to be really the main bread and butter of the audits, to say what actions are being performed by the user that we want to go hunt down and find out. So if you click on this, you get a whole bunch of things available to you. So again, this kind of goes back to what I said, where Microsoft is pretty much tracking you across all the apps. So if you are working on any of the apps inside Office 365, Microsoft probably has some sort of metrics on that. But let's make our one pretty simple right this second. Maybe we want to have like page view. So I can type in the word page, and let's see if it will update for us. So page views, or maybe we want to say views, in which we can see here, hey, this is a page and file activity. So we can see a view to page. So I want to say that, and maybe I also want to say, you know what, we want to have views, and then maybe I also want to have maybe video, and see if maybe we have any sort of video information here. So we can say, oh, we also want to track video views. So maybe you want to track kind of some level of audits on a training website to say who's actually watching the videos that we have, and also who's viewing the informational pages that we have as well. So I can maybe start off with that, or again, if I wanted to, I can track a couple more things of like who shared the video, who liked the video, who unliked the video, maybe who commented on the video, anything else that I wanted to kind of add on to this, I can kind of track that. We also have activities, operation names as well. Again, this pretty much is the exact same control here. You can go ahead and manually type those values in if you so desire, but again, the friendly names is probably a little bit easier for you. Record types is going to be kind of the action that's being performed. So again, these are all going to be based off of, accessing a file. It will be accessed file type of idea. It's engagement with a file. So just be aware, again, if you wish to add additional refiners, you can use record types. Search name just gives it a label that eventually shows up down here so that you can kind of know what is that audit is about. So let's just say we want to say, video views, or maybe video. Sorry, let me type. That's a little better. Video views and page views. We can maybe type that in as kind of the display name. You can also track specific users. So let's say you say, you know what, I want to know what Andrea and Dylan have been doing in the sense of engagement with our learning site. We can go ahead and type their names in here if you so want. And so I can go ahead and select a user. And then we also have file, folder, or site. So by chance, you say, you know what, there's a specific site collection that we want to be able to do an audit on. So let's say I go back to our environment and I say, you know what, I want to track this. This is the URL of the site. So maybe I said sites, and then we say like democom is the site that this is happening on. This is where the URL will say, we're going to kind of focus the search to the audit of that specific site collection, so you can kind of really refine it down. Then also workloads, if by chance you are saying that, hey, again, I'm just kind of putting this net out there, maybe I say access file, and that's a pretty large net to cast. And maybe we want to say, you know what, we want to access files only in SharePoint instead of the entirety of Office 365, so your personal OneDrives and such. Maybe we want to reduce it down type of idea. You can change the workload to say, what should the scope of this be? And so then once you kind of have all this configured here, you can go ahead and hit this search button right here, which then begins to create a search audit. And so down here, we can see that, hey, our new search is here. It's currently in queue. As of right now, it has 0% progress, 0%, search, total result 0 right this second. But if we refresh this page, again, this may not happen immediately, the progress will begin and you can kind of start to see, hey, like there are records being pulled in. As of this second, we have 0, so we're going to keep it ignored for right now. We'll go look at another one that I had ran previously. Again, just also be aware, this can take some time. The very first time that I started doing audit reports, it took a couple of hours. Sometimes it may take only a couple of minutes. Again, it really depends on kind of the engine getting worked up and then also how large of a kind of scope and how many records are going to be pulled into that audit. So if we ever do wish to look at an audit that is complete, we can just go ahead and click on the name of it. And so this one right here is an audit that was searched for this date range. So from the 17th of April to the 19th of April, we want to define any sort of files accessed, copied files, files downloaded, files modified, files uploaded, or page views. And so here we can kind of see, hey, here's all the results there. And so in this, we get kind of the date in which that action happened. We get the IP address that the action was performed from. We also get the name of the user, the logged in user who performed that action. What type of record is it? So again, the file type in SharePoint. What was the activity that occurred? It was an upload of file. What was the item that was modified or the record that was touched? It was the redirect ASPX page. Admin units, again, this is empty currently, and then also details here. If you want to, you can also filter here to say, realistically, I'm looking for things that Andrea did. Let's say in this use case, I can go ahead and hit apply, and it will then filter down the result specifically to Andrea. And again, I can keep on scrolling, and we kind of see all the actions that Andrea performed during that time frame. If by chance you also want to get additional information about that, you can click on the record here, and that will give us, again, far more deeper breakdown of all the information that is happening within that action. So we can kind of see that, hey, Andrea is working inside of Edge when she performed that. Her browser version was this. The IP address up above was, this IP address here. Same thing with list ID, item ID, the platform that she was engaging with. things as such. So again, you get a lot of information available to you whenever you are engaging with this. There is also the capability of hitting this export button. Again, this also may take a little bit of time to actually export this document, but it will export it as a CSV file. So let me go ahead and pull that up real quick for us. It will download a CSV file with all that information in here. However, it is a little bit more, I guess maybe what I'd call problematic in the sense of all the data is put realistically almost into this app data action here, which is realistically all that data that we saw in there broken out into a singular payload. So again, you could, if you are maybe a proficient inside of Excel, to kind of parse that out into separate cells into your table versus it all being a singular thing that we have here. So again, just be aware that is available to you if you wish to export it out and maybe build any sort of reports, or you want to do a little bit more auditing on a more tangible app versus just that browser UI. You can export it out, but again, you might have to do a little bit more work to get that data into a far easier way to consume it. So let me go ahead and pull up my browser once again. Again, also another thing to be aware of, let's say you did do an audit and you're like, you know what, I really liked how this audit turned out. If you ever select it, there is a copy this search button right here. You do click on that and you can kind of see that, hey, some of this field's got repopulated with stuff that I already typed in. So in essence, it allows you to kind of rebuild an audit. So if you say, hey, again, maybe I have an audit that I want to perform every single week, I don't want to have to rebuild it every single week. You can go ahead and select it, kind of act it as a template, say copy from, and then just adjust what you need to change to make it work for you. So instead of saying, oh, like I need it from the 17th to the 19th, maybe I say I need it from the 22nd to the 25th. I can go ahead and hit run. And now I'll have my brand new version of that kind of pre-built versus having to do that again. Another thing to be aware of, Microsoft, with your audit logs, there is a premium version of audits that allows you to have audit logs last for about 10 years. Out of the box with the one that you get without the additional premium license is only 3 months. So again, if you ever do need to do audits, you can run them, but they only stay in the audit history for 3 months before they're kind of purged. So just be aware that either if you want to save that information, download it to a CSV and upload it back to your environment somewhere, or again, go down the path of premium audit logs if you so desire. That kind of concludes my section today initially on Microsoft audits. The next one that I'm going to be covering today is going to be about the new background sections inside of pages and news pages. This is going to be a far simpler one. For those who engage with pages, you might already be kind of familiar with this because this is already kind of being deployed to tenants right this second. But this is going to be another way to kind of make your pages pop a little bit more than what they are available now. So real quick, a quick rundown for those who don't engage with SharePoint pages too often. On a Microsoft page inside of SharePoint Online, you get these things called sections. Sections are going to be more of the framework of your page that you can eventually plug things into, like web parts of text content or images or lists or libraries or video files. It's kind of how your page initially gets set up. Then you also have backgrounds, which will be the styling for those sections. So sections is a framework, and styling, the backgrounds are going to be more of the wallpaper that you put onto that framework. So let me go ahead and pull up the site real quick. So right here is kind of a basic page with the predefined kind of colors that you get from your theme. So again, we kind of have this soft, background tealish color available to us. We have a white. We also have a harsh version of it. These are kind of the out-of-the-box versions that Microsoft gives you. We now have the capability of adding kind of these more gradients, which will kind of have either background imagery or a little bit more color, a little bit more adjustable controls on how harsh or opaque those backgrounds will be. And just to show you how easy it is to go ahead and kind of get started with this, we're going to go ahead and edit one of our pages here. And let me zoom this in a little bit better for us. So we can kind of see now if we have sections, if you ever need to make a modifications to one of your existing sections, you can hover over a section or click into it, and you'll see these options here in the left navigation. So here we want to click on the edit section button here. And now we have all these additional options. Previously, for those who edit pages, you knew that you had these 4 options available to you previously, which is the no styling, the neutral shade, soft shading, or the harsh, or the strong. And now you also have, again, these additional ones like the red fading to blue, light blue fading to green, light blue fading to purple, dark blue fading to purple, et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of click between these and see that, hey, like they have different colors available to us. You also get 2 more controls as well on like what color should the overlay be. This will also kind of help determine what color your text will be on that page. So again, if by chance we can kind of change it to the lighter version, which as of this moment makes that text really hard to read. So maybe we need to increase the opacity, or if we want it to be a little bit more harsher, we can see that now the text turns into a black or to a white because it's on a kind of a darker background. So you can kind of play around with these adjustable controls now to maybe make a little bit your pages have a little bit more vibrancy to them versus kind of the out of the box theme. As of this moment, it seems that we don't have any controls on adding additional background options as of this moment, but this will likely come into the future based off of how Microsoft likes to handle theming as a whole inside Office 365. So hopefully we'll cross our fingers that on the horizon we'll have a lot more control on what will be the options for us. Maybe we can add our own imagery, maybe your company's logo or things as such. So we'll kind of keep that on the horizon on the lookout, but I just wanted to briefly cover that today with you guys. So Hayden, I'm going to pass it back on to you. Thank you guys for your time today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leona. And thank you so much, Ken and Dylan, for your presentations today. I know we are about a minute over as of right now. My apologies. I hope that the value add of all the great content that we discussed kind of makes up for that. So that does conclude the learning portion of today's call. We hope this has sparked some new interests and functionalities that you can explore within your tenant. Please be on the lookout in your email for our next webinar, which will be in May. Usually at this time, we tell you that, today's recording, presentation, and how-to documents will be placed in your learning sites if you're a concierge client. We are creating a new portal with today's recording, presentations, and additional documents, and we'll be in touch soon with more information about that when it's available, so be on the lookout for that as well. With that said, we are now going to go ahead and segue into the open live Q&A forum. If you don't plan on staying for the live Q&A, I just want to say thank you again for learning with us today. On your screen currently, we are showing instructions on how to raise your hand and ask a question to one of our presenters. We'll unmute your mic and questions will be taken in order of hand raise. Give a few more minutes just to make sure if someone has any questions. No, I don't think so. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude. If a question does come up afterwards, feel free to reach out to us via email, and we'll go from there. So thank you, everybody.